Genius, billionaire, playboy, philanthropist. These were the exact immortal words mouthed by Tony Stark in the first Avengers movie, aptly describing himself in his many avatars. And well, these exact words, though not much of a playboy ever, can be thought upon also to describe our man in the question, whose excellent biography we are here to review in our podcast today. Although he is his own man who listens to his own voice, marches to his own fife, and charts his own destiny with both fate and faith firmly in both his hands. He is the marvelous, super duper engineering entrepreneur of the 21st century, the real world Iron Man with a suit of can do attitude, all armored upon him. He is Mr. Elon Musk. And the name of the book is Elon Musk, Tesla, SpaceX, and the Quest for a Fantastic Future, penned by Ashley Vance. After having conducted more than 100 interviews with Elon Musk himself and the people around him, and also personally having spent a lot of time knowing Mr. Musk before the writing of this 400-page inspiring life story published by HarperCollins in 2015 had begun. Hello guys, welcome to the world of The Alchemist Reads. We are a book review podcast and we are here to tell you which books to read, why and how, and also how to enjoy them. Now, my dear listeners, there's no question in my mind, at least, that Mr. Elon Musk is a genius through and through. He has that high ability to learn, recall, and calculate on the fly, on the go, in ways that very few people can keep up with. He has a brain the size of a planet and an ego to match it as well. He is intensely logical and blunt to the point of being obnoxious. His work rate is just simply ridiculous, and the pressure he piles on his employees is, to my mind at least, on the wrong side of the ethical borderline. But then again, he certainly gets things done, often things that are broadly considered impossible by the world at large. Elon Musk is for sure that one single tech billionaire who really wants to save the world, though he has developed a reputation for boldness, brashness, vision, and in many ways competence. Yet he is a complex figure, unsurprisingly, who does not suffer fools easily, and who not only wants to land people on Mars, but also create a new human society there. As he puts it, I want to die on Mars, just not on impact. Now, he is that mythically fantasized Silicon Valley entrepreneur who wants to solve humanity's problems with his electric cars, space travel, and solar panels. But where has he come from and what makes him tick? What are his roots and where does he ultimately wants to reach? Are exactly the questions to which this biography gives interesting answers to. So let's just dive into this. Now, once the writer starts before the beginning, going back to Musk's grandparents and beyond. Elon Musk was born in Pretoria, about an hour away from Johannesburg, South Africa in 1971, to a Canadian mother and an Afrikaner father. But he grew up, for the most part, in Texas, USA. On his father's side, Musk's family roots in South Africa go back several generations. His parents divorced when he was young. He was first in the custody of his mother and then passed on to his father. Musk's father is a rare no-go research area. Neither Elon nor anyone else in the family will talk about the ways in which his father was a scarring, though by no means exclusively negative influence, This is all the more chilling given the unsparingly intense descriptions we get of Musk's childhood. Bullied is a word we often hear. Still, the description of the violence Musk endured as a child, however, are disturbing. In 8th or ninth grade, I suppose, for example, he was attacked by a group of boys, kicked in the head, thrown down a flight of concrete stairs, then set upon on the landing, kicked and beaten bloody until he blacked out. He required hospital care and a week at home to recover. Part of the explanation for this is that for Afrikaners, South Africa under apartheid was a hyper-masculine culture in which physical prowess was seen as an existential necessity. Elon, by way of contrast, was a boy who, when he had exhausted the resources of his school library, literally read the entire encyclopedia. We also remembered what he read and spouted facts, statistics, and explanations whenever anyone in his general vicinity launched a question. But then why did he leave South Africa for good at 17? Well, as elsewhere, Vance, the writer, lays out the options even-handedly, both the surface explanations and the other possibilities, and lets the reader to be the judge of all. Laws had changed, allowing his mother to pass down her Canadian citizenship to her children. Elon was on the cusp of being drafted into the South African army. He had America in his sights and Canada as the optimal gateway. Musk first went to Queen's University in Kingston on the northern shore of Lake Ontario, about 165 miles east of Toronto. And after 2 years there, he transferred to the University of Pennsylvania, pursuing joint bachelor's degrees, one in physics and the other via Wharton in economics. Wow. Just simply wow. He apparently shared some of his undergraduate papers with Vance. Yes, the writer. They both knew each other before the book happened. On topics like space-based solar power plants and the use of ultra-capacitors for energy storage, keen to demonstrate that his interests were long-standing and consistent, that his goal had always been to make a difference, independent of the question of making a fortune. Vance underlines the degree to which Musk's dual-track undergraduate years were obviously reflected in his thinking, even in his early 20s. Musk's clear, concise writing, Vance tells us in the book, is the work of a logician, moving from one point to the next with precision. What truly stood out, though, was Musk's ability to master difficult physics concepts in the midst of actual business plans. Even then, he showed an unusual knack for being able to perceive a path from a scientific advance to a for-profit enterprise. What a jump. What a man. That knack would be crucial to Musk's business accomplishments. The successful development and commercialization of the Tesla electric cars, for example, came about in significant part because he recognized that advances in lithium-ion batteries had changed the weight, power, range, cost equation that had defeated most previous efforts till then. There were softer skills, more human equations, however, that he would need to work on. Musk spent his 2 summers in part in internships in Silicon Valley, not always one at a time. On graduation, he and his brother Campbell headed west and settled there. Together, they would launch Zip2, Musk's first company, which would essentially end up pushing him aside for more mature management, which is not to say that he didn't profit from the experience in every meaning of the word. Something similar happened with the company that would become PayPal, which provided an even greater payoff. As presented by Vance, the writer, those early Silicon Valley experiences did a number of things for Elon Musk. They gave Musk both the capital and the contacts, connections that he was able to use as a springboard for his more ambitious projects in the future. They gave him an early and somewhat traumatic introduction to corporate infighting, which bred a strong impulse going forward to make sure that he kept control of his companies. And they taught him at least limited lessons in how to be an effective, hard-driving manager. In fact, some of Musk's management learning has about it the air of an anthropologist trying to figure out a foreign culture. I could code way better, Musk says of the software engineers at Zip2. And I just go in and fix their code. I would be frustrated waiting for their stuff, so I'm going to go and fix your code, and now it runs 5 times faster, you idiot. Whoa, typical Steve Jobs style, won't you say? Uh, the writer cites another example in which he publicly, Elon Musk publicly chastised and then corrected an engineer who had miswritten a quantum mechanics equation. I'm like, how can you write that? Then I corrected him for him. He hated me after that. Eventually, I realized, okay, I might have fixed that thing, but now I've made the person unproductive. It just wasn't a good way to go about things, was what Elon Musk said later about that incident. It's worth underlining that Musk did not say made an enemy or hurt the feelings of a subordinate per se. The lesson he extrapolated was that to completely ignore how other people felt was inefficient. The triumvirate of companies most dear to Musk and with which he most closely associated is made up of Tesla Motors, which produces electric cars, SolarCity, which produces electricity, some of which feeds free fueling stations for Tesla owners, and SpaceX, a private company with the non-entirely low-key aim of making humanity a multi-planetary species. The likely first step in that direction being the colonization of Mars. The road to making those companies viable enterprises has been predictably rocky to say the least. In early 2007, the actor Robert Downey Jr., yes, the on-screen Iron Man, visited the SpaceX factory. Musk gave him a personal tour. Downey in turn modeled some core parts of his Tony Stark character, the techno-billionaire who suits up to travel into space, battle evil, defeat the enemies of America and Earth at large as Iron Man, on Musk, going as far as to ask that a Tesla Roadster, not yet available to the public, sit next to Stark's desk. Now, my dear listeners, this is very important part of the book. The year 2008, however, was an annus horribilis, a horrible year, horrible year for Musk, both personally and financially. His first marriage ended. He came perilously close to losing out just about every penny he had earned. Both Tesla and SpaceX were on the brink of bankruptcy. I have never seen anything like Elon Musk's ability to take pain. Once quotes Antonio Gracias, a friend of Musk's, an investor in both Tesla and SpaceX, founder and CEO of Valor Equity Partners, as saying, which sounds less like a description of an engineer or an entrepreneur, more the kind of a descriptive applied to someone in extreme sports. That's amazing, Mr. Musk. In May of that year, the Truth About Cars website began a Tesla death watch. In June, Musk filed for divorce. In August, the SpaceX Falcon 1 had its first, or I should say, third rather, disastrous launch failure, taking a US Air Force satellite down in flames with it. Then, in October, tech industry gossip site Valleywag released a scathing attack on Musk in general, not its first, by the way, and on Tesla in particular. There were a few crucial bright spots, thankfully, as well. In July, Musk met Talu Riley, a British actress, 14 years his junior, who would end up being his second wife. September saw the fourth and final successful launch of the Falcon 1, and most important of all, on the business side, the holiday season brought a last-minute financial reprieve. The deal, Vance writes, a life-saving infusion of capital, ended up closing on Christmas Eve, hours before Tesla would have gone bankrupt. Musk had just a few $100,000 left and could not have made payroll the next day. Musk eventually put in $12 million, and the investment firms put up the rest. Now, my dear, sweet listeners, Musk is the kind of subject who puts both writers and podcasters like me in a quandary. Some people talk about him, he sometimes talks about himself in messianic terms. Others take a dimmer view, though more in the spheres of finance and personality than in the realm of science and engineering. He's one to present readers and listeners with a simulacrum of the truth. First and foremost, Vance notes that Musk is not a purveyor of vaporware, the Silicon Valley term for a visionary product, usually software, which exists only in the perpetual future. When considering if Musk's aim of going to Mars is credible or hype, there is Musk's track record to consider also. Previous electric cars had failed in part because of power limitations and the resultant range anxiety, I must say. Musk assessed the improved state of battery technology, also improved it further, and built a marketable product. Solar power, even with state and federal subsidies and the falling cost of solar panels, had proven a difficult sell, particularly around the issue of upfront investment. Musk was a key part of developing a new model in which the installer took on those costs, reaped the rebate benefits, and made getting into solar both technically seamless and financially painless for the end user. Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and the other aerospace incumbents were tangled up in bureaucratic procedures and inflated costs. SpaceX showed that they could cut expenses by as much as 90% and still get the job done. Another strength of Vance's book is the healthy dose of skepticism as well. Obviously, this book is not a hagiography who is just simply promoting and just simply praising its hero in the title. Within Silicon Valley, Vance writes in the first few pages, Musk was a deity. But outside this warped version of reality, he continues, Musk often comes off as a more polarizing figure. He's the guy with electric cars, solar panels, and rockets peddling false hope. Forget Steve Jobs. Musk is a sci-fi version of P.T. Barnum. I'd long been a subscriber to this latter camp as well, writes Vance. Musk had struck me as a well-intentioned dreamer, a card-carrying member of Silicon Valley's techno-utopian club. Wow, what a takedown. To his credit, Vance provides a good deal of primary source documentation as well. As in Musk's own ruminations about the evolution of his management style, readers can also dig through the appendices and make their own judgments given at the end of the book. In Appendix 3rd, for example, we get the full text, several pages of an email Musk sent to all the employees of SpaceX, many of whom were evincing dissatisfaction that the company was in no great hurry to go public, which limited the value of options employees had on a stock that did not yet exist. Some at SpaceX who have not been through a public company experience may think that being public is desirable, Musk wrote on June 7, 2013. This is not so. For those who are under the impression that they are so clever that they can outsmart public market investors and would sell SpaceX stock at the right time, let me relieve you of any such notion. If you think, but I know what's really going on at SpaceX and that will give me an edge, you are also wrong. Wow, Musk writes well. He anticipates and understands the questions he needs to address. He gathers and presents information cogently. It is not that anything that he writes is nasty exactly, it's more a matter of tone. Perhaps best described as that of a patient but exasperated parent, willing to provide a full and calm answer, not trying to rush or scant his response, working with reasonable success to maintain a degree of civility, I should say. Bringing it all together at the end provides a good overview and synthesis. Once is titling the final chapter as it did above is witty, given Musk's lifelong affinity for physics. Yes, the final chapter is bringing it all together. When Vance maps out the connections between Musk's various ventures, SpaceX, Solar City, Tesla Motors, the intersections between technologies, and the ways in which the totality of Musk's career has a clear nexus. We believe him because he has meticulously laid the groundwork and shown us the evidence in the preceding 350 plus pages. In that sense, Vance's comparison of Musk to Thomas Edison or to even Nikola Tesla is fair. All had vision. Musk has irrefutably done things that have not been done before. Never mind anything else. He founded, ran, carried, goaded, nurtured a company that built rockets from scratch and put them into orbit, then send them further onto the International Space Station. In previous human history, countries have done that, not companies. And other entrepreneurs, other companies have vaporized fortunes in attempts to achieve the same goal, a fate to which, as once documents, Musk came perilously close. Yet it did not ultimately show him down all that much. So, my dear listeners, my dear readers, what do you think? Guys, what do you think? Will Musk ever get to Mars? Will humanity as a whole? While both are open questions as of this moment, one does a good job of explicating and illuminating why and how Musk, the bullied, the beaten South African know-it-all adolescent, the scientific savant with his secondary bachelor's degree in business from Wharton, the tyrannical boss who inspires both stunned exasperation and fierce loyalty from his colleagues and from his workforce, might be the person to actually achieve that goal. Once credibly makes the case that, however fantastical his dreams might be, Elon Musk has consistently brought clarity to bear on both the engineering problems and the financial hurdles that have heretofore kept humankind earthbound. Now, before I close this podcast, one final thought. For years, both the companies, Tesla and SpaceX, were near jokes, and people were waiting to see Musk fail. Tesla was late delivering its first electric supercars to celebrity customers, while SpaceX test rockets kept blowing up. But Musk persevered. Today, Tesla sells nearly 50,000 cars a year. Wow! And SpaceX has become the first private company in history to launch a rocket into orbit in 2013. It successfully delivered its first commercial satellite. It now has a long and profitable roster of launch missions planned for government agencies like, for example, NASA, to resupply the International Space Station, and to other satellite companies as well. No one is laughing anymore. No one is making fun of Mr. Musk anymore. As Musk's former eBay comrade Peter Thiel tells once, to the extent that the world still doubts Elon, I think it's a reflection on the insanity of the world and not on the supposed insanity of Elon. What a quote, man. What a quote. The scientists of today, Nikola Tesla, wrote around the turn of the last century, think deeply instead of clearly. Good take. Elon Musk, on the other hand, is insane enough to think both clearly and deeply. Oh yeah. Elon Musk has both the clarity and the insanity, depth and rationality to think far beyond our means and dreams. That's why Elon Musk is a superstar, a genius superstar. So guys, this was the podcast for today. I hope you must have enjoyed it. And please keep listening to all our remaining podcasts as well. We always put the link in the bio of the ebook that you can purchase and read. So I hope to meet you soon again. See you guys. The Alchemist has left the building.